Thank you for joining us at ChristianPhotoshops.com. Today we're going to be doing a Photoshop tutorial, and this one is going to be a surreal image, and it's going to be the one of a man walking through a parted ocean. So the waters have been parted, just like in the Bible where the Red Sea is parted, and he'll be walking on dry land through it. So kind of a surreal picture with the really tall waves on both sides and walking through it on dry land. So we've got our canvas open, and let's go and get started. So we have our canvas open right now. Let me go ahead and show you the pictures that we're going to be using today. These are all stock pictures that you can find on the internet, various stock websites you can buy them from. The first picture is a picture of a breaking wave, just a picture of a wave crashing. We have another picture of a wave crashing, so we're going to have two of those. A picture of the water coming up onto the sand and the sea foam. We've got a picture of a desert. We got a picture of clouds. And then finally we just have a picture of a man walking. So we're going to be using all of those pictures to create this image, and we'll go ahead and get started. We've got our blank canvas open. And we always start with the background first. So we'll go ahead and go to our desert picture. Go ahead and bring this in. Resize it accordingly, and I think we're going to put it about, the horizon's pretty much going to be about halfway in the picture. Alright, so that looks good right there. Now we're going to go ahead and add the clouds to the background. So go to your cloud image, paste it there on top, and then just drag it about like that. And then go to your mask, get a nice large soft brush, make sure it's black, and then just paint away parts of the clouds that you don't want, the parts that are on the desert. Okay. I chose these clouds because it's kind of a dramatic, dark storm clouds are coming in, so it's going to kind of add to the drama of the picture. But the clouds are not going to be a very important part of this picture, so don't worry about it too much if you can't find the right clouds or you can't find the right dramatic setting for the background. But I like these clouds. I think this will be a good addition to this picture. Alright, so this is a pretty quick blending mode in there. I'm going to create a layer above those two. I'm going to click this brownish color, and then I'm going to draw with a large brush right on the horizon. I'm going to do that a couple times, and this is going to kind of create like a fog or a mist in the background and just kind of tie in the horizon to the clouds. Okay. Alright, that looks good. I'm going to change the clouds a little bit different color. The clouds are very blue and the desert is very reddish brownish color. So let's change the color of the clouds a little bit. Go to your clouds layer, do an adjustment layer right above it. We're going to do, we'll do hue and saturation. Clip it to your clouds, click Colorize, and then just drag your hue button over to where you think the picture should be. So I'm going to do it kind of this dark red yellowish color. Probably bring my saturation down just a little bit because I don't want it too colorful. So I think right there looks pretty good. Alright, so we've got our background for our image. So we can go ahead and start adding the water elements in. I'm going to go ahead and put all of these layers right here into a group, into a folder, and we're going to just call it background. We won't really do much work, any more work to the background, so we can just put that in a folder and forget about it. Going to add another layer on top of that. We're going to go ahead and start adding the water elements to this picture, and the first picture we need is this picture of the water coming up on the shore. and the kind of the sea foam and this little shape it's making right here. So what we're going to do, take your lasso tool and pretty much just grab a good portion of the water and maybe just a little bit of the sand. And so you've got a nice selection like that. Copy it and paste it over to your Photoshop canvas, and we have our water right here. And we want to make, we're trying to make the water being divided right in the center of the picture. So what we're kind of wanting to do is to have the water go like this, and it kind of meets at the horizon. So we're going to have to make this this layer right here to kind of match that. And all you have to do is to kind of warp the shape of this. And what you can do is hold down the control key, use your mouse, and just drag the points until you get a nice shape that makes it look like it's going off into the horizon. Okay. And it's not going to go all the way to the horizon, so don't try to stretch it that far. We're going to duplicate this in a second, so we're going to have 2 of these layers. But about like that, I think will look pretty good. Okay, hit the check mark. All right, so that looks good right there. The next thing I'm going to do is duplicate that. So now we have 2 of these. We have 2 of these going right here. And the one on the bottom, we're going to move this up, and then we're going to make it smaller. So just grab the, make sure you hold down the control key, then grab the corners, make it smaller if you need to, and then just kind of make sure you aim the water so it's going towards the horizon in kind of a V shape, kind of a diagonal. Okay, and it does not have to go all the way to the horizon, just kind of close to the horizon. So about like that, I think looks good. All right, on your layer on the top, we're going to just get rid of some of the edges, the hard edges. So take a soft brush, you can zoom in a little bit, and just, this is the top layer, and just slowly erase that edge of the top layer, and you're revealing the layer below it. Okay, that looks good. That looks pretty seamless right there. And then while we're at it, go ahead and erase these hard edges from the water. And we can actually go ahead and merge the 2 layers. Actually, don't merge the layers yet. Let's, before we merge the layers, let's clean this up a little bit. All right, I'm going to make it just a little bit smaller, so the edge is right there. Then I'm going to mask out the edge, the horizon, because you don't want the water going above the horizon. Okay. And then right where the 2 layers meet, kind of zoom in and see how that looks. You can see we kind of have a discrepancy right here. And just go ahead and fix that up real quick. So kind of erase the parts of the layer that need to be erased. and just fix that. All right, I think that looks good right there. Now we can go ahead and merge those two layers together. Let's back up again. All right, so we have the left side of the screen, the left side of the water is in one layer. And while it's one layer, I'm going to go and add a mask to this new water layer. Make your brush pretty large. And then change your opacity down to about 30% or so. And then we can zoom in a little bit. And then just slowly merge the edge of that water with the desert. Okay. All right, that looks fine, just like that. Now we're going to get rid of the sand. So while you're on the mask, change your opacity back up to 100, but let's make our brush just a little bit smaller. Zoom in, and what we're going to do is we're going to erase the sand off of this layer. So just take your brush and just slowly erase the parts of the sand, because the sand is not existent in this Photoshop we're creating. It's just going to be the desert ground. So just carefully take your brush and just erase all of the sand. And zoom in as much as you need to. And you can always change your brush size as you need to as well. And when you get to the edge up here, got a nice hard edge right here, so what we're going to do is just kind of fade that out. This is going to be in the very back of the picture, probably won't even be recognized, but we'll just go and fade that out. And then just take your time and get rid of that sand element that was on the original layer, because what we're doing is we're showing that the water is right on top of this dry desert bed. Okay, that looks good, and we'll take the white and just paint the little spots that we went too far on. All right, I think that is well blended. So now you see what we have. We have the water layer on top of the desert background. I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this water layer. And then I'm going to go to Edit, Transform, Flip Horizontal. And then I'm going to bring this on this side. And we want it about like that. We want the layer to be just slightly different on the right and left. We don't want perfect symmetry, so I'm going to kind of just warp it just a little bit so it's not quite the same. You could spend more time and kind of change the patterns of the foam so that it's not perfect in symmetry, but we're not going to do that in this tutorial. But you could change the pattern over here so it's not a perfect mirror. But if you tweak it just a little bit, people aren't going to notice that it's the same layer inverted. All right, so we've got our two water layers. Right now is a great time to save, so let's go ahead and save your Photoshop. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to blend, or I'm going to merge these two layers together. So we have one water layer. And I'm going to go ahead and change the color just a little bit, and I'm going to change the color of the water so it matches the color of the desert below it. You can see the water is slightly yellow and the desert's slightly red, so I'm just going to do a really quick change to blend those. Go to Hue and Saturation and clip it to it, Colorize, and then just drag your cursor on the hue until it matches pretty good to the water. Same thing we did with the clouds earlier. So there's before and after. Not a big change, but I like to go ahead and make sure those colors are pretty much close and matching up. All right, so that looks good. We can go ahead and start adding the big waves now. And before we do that, I'm going to create a new folder and just stick that in there just to organize our layers. So this is our water. This is our bottom water, and we can go ahead and close that and create a new layer. And what we're going to do is we're going to start with this wave. So you can just copy and paste the entire thing into the new picture, into the new canvas. So we have our wave here, and this is going to be our wave on the left side of the picture. What I'm going to do is just go ahead and increase the size. It's going to be a very large wave. So increase the size, and then use your distortion tools, holding Control, and then grabbing one of the corners. And we're going to kind of alter the shape of this wave so it's kind of more of it's kind of more going the direction of the water into the horizon. So kind of like this. Okay, once you have it like that, go to Edit, Transform, and Warp, and we're going to kind of even warp it even more. So kind of bring the bottom part of the water down and then the top part of the water over to the right. So pretty much like that, I think looks good. All right, go to your mask, get you a brush, make sure it's on 100%, get a fairly large brush, and then we're going to mask out these hard edges. So mask it out with 100% opacity, pretty much all the way to that white foam. Like that looks good. Mask out the part of the layer that we don't need up here in the top. All right, that looks good. When you have the foam completely visible, we're going to change our opacity down to about 30%, and then we are going to, first of all, cut out part of the eye. So this part right here, we're not going to cut it out completely, but we're going to cut it out about 30% opacity so you can see some of the clouds through the eye. And then where the wave starts forming, we're going to kind of blend that very lightly. So just use your 30% and just kind of blend. Just blend the water, the bottom part of the water, up into this wave. So just very carefully, just blend it up just like that. All right, I think that looks good right there. So we can go ahead and leave that as it is. Maybe turn it down just a little bit. All right, now for behind this wave right here, this big wave we created, we're going to do the exact same thing we did earlier. Take your wave, create a new layer behind it, and then we're going to really distort this one. And just kind of throw it back in the background. All right, so just distort the wave as you see appropriate. And then the exact same thing, take your mask, start off with 100%, get rid of the sky part, get rid of these hard edges all the way to the sea foam. This hard edge right in here. All right, then lower your opacity down to about 25 to 30%. Same thing in the eye wall. Kind of blend that out just a little bit so you can see through the eye. And then blend right here at the edge. And then what I'm going to do for the top layer is kind of blend that edge out right there. All right, I think that looks fine like that. You have a nice soft edges to the waves, and that doesn't look very natural, but leave that there right now. We're going to change that in the future, so just leave that there right now. But I think the left side of the waves look good right now, so we're going to leave that right there. It's going to start working on the right side of the waves. We're going to use this wave right here for the right side. So just copy, paste it in here. We can flip that horizontal. And very similar to what we just did, just make this wave fit into the scene by distorting it using your mouse in the corner selections. So just kind of move it however you think it would look the best. Maybe kind of like that. Now we're going to mask it out just like the other side, 100%. Mask out your hard edges and the parts you don't need, like the sky. Don't worry about the color right now. We will fix the color, but the color is definitely not appropriate, but we'll fix the color. Mask out 100% to the seafoam. Okay, then change your opacity down to about 25 to 30%. Erase part of um, the eye of the wave right there so you can see through it. And then at the edge of the wave, just slowly paint the edges at 25%, and then that way it will blend perfectly from the bottom part of the water to the top part of the water. All right, that looks good with the exception that I would like to curve this over just a little bit. So just warp it, use your warp tool. And you don't want the two sides to be symmetrical, so make it a little asymmetrical, but I think about right. Maybe about like that would look good. All right, same thing for behind it. Get your water, put it right behind it. Okay, that looks good right there. And then just blend out the parts you don't need. And we'll go to this one and kind of blend out the top layer. All right, I think that's good the way that looks right there. Let me blend this in just a little bit more. All right, so we've got our water on the left and we've got our water on the right. The water on the left and is a lot different color than the water on the right. So what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to blend. Let's first of all, let's merge these two layers. So we have our right layer, we have our left layer, and it's probably going to be easier to change the color on this one. So what we'll do is create an adjustment layer, hue and saturation, go to Colorize, drag it till you get something close. Okay. I think about right there is close, but it's not all the way there. Then go to selective color, click on your cyans, and you're pretty much wanting it to be more green. So what we're going to do is add a little bit of yellow to it and maybe even take away some of the cyan, maybe add a little black to it. Go to your blues, do the same thing, add a little green or add a little yellow to it, make it a little bit darker, and we'll turn that down just a little bit. And then finally, let's add a curves adjustment, and let's just make it a little bit darker, but the whites need to be just the same amount of white. Alright, so that's good. It's not a perfect match of color, but it's a lot better than what we started. So we've got our water going now. And we want to kind of enhance these wave splatters up here. It looks like I just photoshopped it in and didn't do a good job of blending the waves in. So how we're going to do that is we're actually going to use another stock image, and this is just a picture of water spraying, and we're going to use this picture. It's water splatters on a white background, and just copy that, and let's paste that at the very top of our picture. And I'm going to use these water splatters. I'm going to change the blend mode to screen, and I'm going to put it right there where the waves are breaking. Now the waves are kind of a curved shape, so what I'm going to do after I get it in place, I'm going to go to Edit, Transform, Warp, and then just kind of move the shape of the water splatters in kind of an arc to match these curves, the curves of the waves. Okay, I think that looks good right there. And then as always, we're going to do a mask and then blend out these hard edges right here. All right, that looks good. Now we're going to do the exact same thing on the left side. Move your water splashes. I'm going to kind of rotate it a little bit. Kind of move it like this. And I'm not going to warp it this time. What I'm going to do is just straight take it like that. Change your blend mode to screen. And then get rid of the hard edges. And this is going to create the kind of illusion that there's a bunch of water going everywhere and the water drops are splashing everywhere, and it just adds one more little element of detail and makes your image a little bit more believable. Alright, so we got our water splashes going. And I think the next thing I'm going to do is the clouds are kind of a red color that we changed earlier, and it's kind of a hard transition from the cloud to the color of the wave. So I think I'm going to play around with the color of the clouds. We have that in our earlier layer that we worked on, our hue and saturation. And I think we're going to change the clouds back to that kind of bluish color. Maybe like that. Maybe even darken the clouds a little bit. Yeah, it's too dark. All right, and maybe just a little bit more color adjustment on the background. Okay, that looks all right. Kind of blends in with the sky and the clouds and the water just a little bit better. We can always change it later if we need to. All right, another thing we can do, this is kind of optional, we could change the color of the water here on the bottom to match the water of the waves. And the way you do that, you go to your bottom water, go to hue and saturation. We've already got it set up. We kind of made it that red color earlier. But now all you got to do is just kind of drag it to that bluish color, the greenish blue color. Maybe drop the saturation a little bit. And I think we should go a little bit more, maybe like that. Okay, that could look good. And then on the mask for the hue and saturation, just go in and make sure you get rid of the edges because we don't want the blue to spill over. You could leave the color as the reddish color too. Either way works fine. We're going to try this one, see how this looks. Okay, and then make your brush a little bit bigger, opacity down to about 10 to 20%, and then just slowly blend that color, that reddish color, into the bluish color. All right, let's see how that looks. So now it kind of the reddish color kind of fades up into that bluish color a lot smoother now. All right, I think we're at a good point to go and put the model in, which is actually me walking, but let's go ahead and add him in right here. And we're going to, the size is up to you. You could put him right here, kind of walking into it, but his feet aren't in the picture. Or you could go extremely small, and go for the really surreal picture, and just do it like that. Um, and you could go even really smaller, have him really far out there in the picture. I'm not going to go quite that surreal. What we're going to do is probably maybe about this size right here. Maybe a little bit smaller. And you can put the model wherever you want to, but I think right about there would look good. All right, let's go ahead and let's make a couple adjustments. He's a lot darker than the picture, so a quick way to lower that contrast is go to levels, and then right here on levels, take your black output layer and just bring it to the right just a little bit, and what that does is that makes those blacks not quite as black, so you can see the difference. Just it removes a lot of the contrast, so I think about right there will be fine. And below the model we're going to add a shadow, and this is how I add shadows. Let's zoom in. The light source that we're going to add in a little bit is going to be right in front of him, so he's going to cast a long shadow, and so all I'm going to do is use my lasso tool, make a layer underneath the model, and then just draw what his reflection will look like. So there's his leg, there's his hand, not a perfect shape obviously, and then here's his other side, here's his hand, there's his legs, and there's that right there. And maybe add that to it. All right, fill that with black. And you can see it's not a very good shape, but it'll work. To make it look more like a shadow, go to your filter, blur, motion blur, and then we'll do it about 70 to 90%. Angle is fine, and just kind of blend it or kind of blur it so it goes like that. And then create a mask, get a large brush, change your opacity pretty low. I got 14% here, and just paint a lot away from the shadow, and don't paint as much right at the shadow, right at the feet. So right here at the bottom of the picture, paint a lot. It's going to be almost invisible right up here, but then towards the feet it's going to be a lot darker. Okay, I think that looks good. You could also use the gradient for this. I like to paint by hand on here, just have more control over the opacity of the shadow. I think like that looks good. And if you paint too much, you can always just switch your thing to white and then just paint a little bit more right in there. Let's back up, see how it looks. All right, that looks good. I think we can lower the opacity just a little bit though. Okay, I think that looks good. And one quick thing I like to do, change your fill to 0. Go to your effects and go to color overlay, and then click anywhere in this desert spot to get the color. Well, we won't click. We'll get just pick a reddish, a dark red, brown, orange color, like that. And then change your blend mode to multiply, maybe a little bit darker. Okay. And all that does is it gives it a little bit more, the color is a little bit better matches the background than just a solid black. Alright, so we've got our model in there, we've got the water going. Next thing we're going to do is add the light source. And to add the light source, we're going to put it right above the bottom water layer, but below the two waves. So we're going to put our light source, it's going to be right here. So it's going to be above this water, but it's going to be below this water. Alright, so you've got a new layer above the bottom water, but below the waves. Go to your gradient filter. Make sure you're on radial, and we'll do white. And then just draw a circle with your radial gradient. Put it right there. That looks good. And then just kind of tone it down just a little bit. And when you do that, you can see some errors you made earlier. So I'm going to go ahead and fix that. Alright, so we got part of our light source right here. So this is before and after. The light source is going to be right here on the horizon. Now, go to the very top of the layers. Do the exact same thing. Create a circle with your radial gradient right there, and then lower it. I don't want it quite that bright yet. Okay. Actually, yeah, slide the light below the model. The light source is going to be below the model for this shot. All right, go to your top of your layers, fill it with black. Go to Filter, Render, Lens Flare. Click 105 millimeter prime lens, and then we'll do about 115% or so. Pretty much anywhere, right in the center looks good. Change it to screen, and then slide it up, and we'll do the light source pretty much right in the center of the picture. Just move it around however you feel necessary. That looks good. And then if you have any hard edges from moving the lens flare around, like right here, these edges right here, you can just kind of blend these out. I just changed it to multiply so I could see where the edges are. And then change it back to screen. Looks good. It's a little bit too bright though, so you can either change your lens flare down, or you can go to those lights we made earlier, make them a little bit less. About right there looks good. Okay, and above your lens flare layer, create a new layer. We're going to use kind of an orange color. This one is EE8C00, and just paint pretty much right over top of your lens flare, that orange color, and then change it to color. And that's a little too yellow, too orange. Let's go a little bit more yellow. And then color. That looks alright. And then just change your opacity down a little bit, maybe down to about 20%, 25%, something like that. And that just gives the lens flare, just gives that just a little bit of color rather than just a pure white color. Alright, I like how the picture looks so far. I think that the model is a little too bright, and that's because the lens flare is on top. So let's bring that lens flare below the model. But if all the light source is in front of the model, we need to add some light on the edge of his body. So what we're going to do is go click on the model, click your effects, go to outer glow. Actually, let's try inner glow. Try inner glow. Change it to kind of a yellowish orange color, maybe like that. Make sure it's on screen. And then we'll do it kind of like that. And this is just going to create a very faint kind of a rim lighting around him. And then finally, you can also add a curves adjustment above. Make it darker. Invert it. And then paint it kind of on the back side. So it's kind of creating that silhouette. Okay, so that's before and after. Just a very small lighting change, but it can make a big difference sometimes. Turn it down just a little bit. And I'm going to duplicate the lens layer, the lens flare layer, put it on top, and then change my opacity down to about 30%. All right, that looks good. The last thing we're going to do is just kind of work on some coloring for the picture. So let me just go ahead and start working on that. All right, to work on the colors, what we're going to do is create a layer above everything else, a new layer. Go to Image, Apply Image, click OK. What this is going to do is it's going to compress all of the layers we had, and then it's going to flatten it into a new layer, but we always have our old layers so we can work on later. So we have our new layer right here. Let's go ahead and start working on curves. So go to Curves, and let's bring the curves down and see what happens. Okay. Kind of add in some dramatic lighting here by doing this. Okay, so the waves are a lot darker when you bring the curves down. The middle part of the picture is too dark though. We can see the horizon and the model's too dark and everything. So what we're going to do is just mask part of that curve adjustment out. So just get about a 25% opacity brush, a large brush. Actually, I'm going to go down to about 20%. And then just start painting the center of the picture, mainly around the model, the horizon, the front part of the top part of the desert. Kind of paint that because we don't want that quite as dark. Okay, that looks good. All right, the next thing we're going to do, add a new layer above that. Go to your gradient tool right here. We're going to create a gradient layer, and we're going to do kind of an orange to blue. So we'll do about right there. The color is DEA 700, and then we're going to change the blue kind of about right there, I think. So I've got 2869 AC. See how that looks. So just drag your yellow in the center of the picture, maybe about right there. Oh, let's try that again. Yellow in the center of the picture, blue on the outside. Go to soft light. And that blue is a little too blue. I need that blue a little bit more green. Maybe about right there. Let's try this again. Okay, that looks better. Maybe make that circle a little bit bigger. Yeah, that looks good. And take that down just a little bit. We don't want it quite that colorful. Okay, about 40% looks good. And now I think I want to add a new adjustment layer for Vibrance. I'm going to go to Vibrance and bring that Vibrance up. Bring it up pretty high. Maybe bring the saturation up just a little bit. And the more I look at this, I don't like that yellowish color, that greenish color in the water, and that comes from here. So I'm going to go change our gradient layer, and that yellowish needs to go back down to orange. So let's try that. Yeah, that looks a little bit better. Maybe like that. And then I'm going to erase a little bit of the vibrance off of the middle part of the picture. Okay. And I think that looks good for the coloring, so we can go ahead and call this a completed Photoshop for the coloring. I do want to add one more thing of water up here on the top. So I'm going to bring this right here. Just to add a couple more details. You could spend a long time just working on all the details, but I think I'm going to add just a little bit more water right here. Let's screen that. And blend it out. Okay, and one last check I like to do just to make sure everything looks right is go to levels and just go crazy with your levels and maybe bring it down really dark and then see if you have any problems. Like for example, this problem right here, the water just kind of goes off into the distance and nothing's really going on there. And one really quick way to fix that, you could go back and extend the layers and all that stuff, but we're going to do the quick way to fix that. And I'm going to go to my radial tool, going to do a white color, actually do kind of a yellowish white, and then just bring this right here, change it to screen, and then do it one more time right about here. And then that way you won't even be able to see, it just kind of goes off into the bright light. So when you bring your levels back, oh, it's way too bright, but you can tone it down just a little bit. Maybe even erase part of it where the model's at. And it's still noticeable on the levels, but I think it'll look pretty good like that because you can't really see it without going in Photoshop and changing it like that. Another thing you could do is you could go down to the bottom where your background layer is. Remember the background layer we created? And you couldn't do that because of this. And then kind of erase part of the horizon of the background, and then that way you could see, make it look like the water's kind of going off into the horizon. So you're just kind of tricking um, the picture just a little bit so it looks like it's going off into the horizon. So I think that'll be fine like that. And off your levels, and we could even bring that down a little bit more. All right, so this looks good. Let's go ahead and flatten the image after you save. Duplicate the layer. Go to Other, High Pass. Change your radius to about, we'll do about 1.5 pixels. Change it to Overlay. Maybe one more overlay. Looks good. So I think we'll go ahead and call that a completed Photoshop. There's a lot of other things you could do to it. You could go to Gradient Map and change it to black and white, and then change it to multiply and kind of make it a darker version. Or you could change your gradient map to like a purple and yellow picture and go to screen. Kind of have more of a bright, glowing picture. But I think we'll just leave it the way it is like this. And I think we'll call it a finished Photoshop. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I hope you learned something from it today. And if you have any questions about this tutorial or anything else, just contact me. And we appreciate you joining ChristianPhotoshops.com. Thanks.